Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to have you join me, because what we're about to talk about is one of the most fascinating stories in American coin history. Today's video is all about the Liberty Quarter Dollar from 1965, a coin that most people have seen, spent, or even ignored, yet under rare and extraordinary circumstances has been associated with a potential worth of up to $89,000 million. Yes, a coin with a face value of just 25 cents, something you could easily overlook in your pocket change, can become unimaginably valuable because of errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and rare possibilities that transform an ordinary quarter into a legendary treasure. The year 1965 was a turning point in United States coinage. It was a year of massive change, confusion, and experimentation at the U.S. Mint. Rising silver prices, economic pressure, and growing demand for coins forced the mint to make decisions that would forever alter American money. The Liberty Quarter, also known as the Washington Quarter, had been made of 90% silver for decades. But in 1965, everything changed. The Coinage Act of 1965 removed silver from circulating quarters and replaced it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. This transition didn't happen smoothly, and that chaotic period is exactly where some of the most fascinating and valuable errors were born. To truly understand why a 1965 Liberty Quarter could be worth such an astonishing amount, we need to understand what was happening inside the U.S. Mint at the time. In the early 1960s, silver prices were rising rapidly, and people began hoarding silver coins. Quarters, dimes, and half-dollars were disappearing from circulation as people realized the metal inside them was becoming more valuable than their face value. This created a serious coin shortage. Vending machines didn't work properly, cash registers were short on change, and everyday commerce was affected. The government responded by removing silver from most circulating coins, starting in 1965. Quarters were now supposed to be made of a layered composition with a copper core sandwiched between two outer layers of copper nickel. At the same time, to discourage hoarding, the mint made another major decision. They removed mint marks from coins dated 1965, 1966, and 1967. This means that officially, number 1965 quarters should have a mint mark at all, regardless of whether they were struck in Philadelphia or Denver. This combination of massive production, new materials, rushed timelines, and policy changes created the perfect environment for mistakes. Millions upon millions of quarters were struck in 1965, and the pressure to get coins into circulation meant that quality control was not always perfect. In such an environment, errors could and did slip through, and those errors are what make certain 1965 quarters so extraordinary today. One of the most famous and valuable possibilities involving the 1965 quarter is the existence of silver planchet errors. Even though quarters dated 1965 were supposed to be made of copper-nickel, there is strong evidence that some were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. These silver blanks were still present in mint facilities during the transition, and in rare cases, they may have been fed into presses meant for the new clad coins. A genuine 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet is one of the holy grails of modern U.S. coin collecting. What makes this type of error so valuable is not just its rarity, but its historical significance. It represents a direct connection to the moment when American coinage changed forever. A silver 1965 quarter defies official mint policy and serves as physical proof of the chaos and confusion of that transition period. These coins can often be identified by their weight, sound, and edge. A silver quarter weighs more than a clad one, produces a distinctive ringing sound when dropped, and lacks the visible copper stripe on the edge that clad coins have. Another remarkable category of errors involves double dies. Double die errors occur during the creation of the coin dies, not during the striking of the coin itself. If the die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, elements of the design can appear doubled on every coin struck from that die. On a 1965 quarter, doubling might appear on the date, the word Liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or even parts of Washington's portrait. True double die quarters from 1965 are extremely rare, especially strong and obvious examples. Die cracks, die breaks, and cuds are also important contributors to the potential value of a 1965 quarter. Because of the intense production demands, dies were often used longer than ideal. Over time, the metal dies could develop cracks. These cracks appear on coins as raised lines. As cracks grow, they can turn into breaks, and eventually, parts of the die. My dears, our today's second history is dedicated to the Liberty $quarter from 1978 with the Denver Mint origin, a coin that at first glance looks just like millions of others, yet under rare conditions has been associated with an astonishing potential worth of up to $81,000 million. That's a staggering contrast to its humble face value of just 25 cents, and the reason behind it lies in a fascinating combination of errors, mint mistakes, mint mark anomalies, production quirks, and rare possibilities that can transform a simple coin into a legendary treasure. When most people think of valuable coins, they imagine something ancient, silver, or gold, maybe from the 1800s or earlier. Very few would suspect that a modern-era quarter from the late 1970s could carry such immense potential value. Yet the world of coin collecting is full of surprises, and the 1978 Liberty quarter is a perfect example of how history, manufacturing pressure, human error, and collector passion can all intersect to create something truly remarkable. To understand why the 1978 quarter can be so special, we first need to understand the era in which it was made. The late 1970s were a busy time for the United States Mint. Inflation was high, the economy was under strain, and the demand for circulating coinage was enormous. Quarters were used everywhere, from everyday shopping to vending machines, laundromats, parking meters, and public transportation. Millions upon millions of quarters were struck each year to keep up with demand, especially at the Denver Mint, which was one of the main production facilities for circulating coins. The Liberty Quarter, officially known as the Washington Quarter, had already undergone major changes earlier in the decade. Silver had been removed from quarters in 1965, and by 1978, the copper-nickel-clad composition was well established. However, even with years of experience striking clad coins, the mint still faced challenges. High-speed presses, worn dies, rushed production schedules, and human oversight all created opportunities for errors to occur. In a year like 1978, when production numbers were high and quality control was under constant pressure, those opportunities multiplied. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, played a crucial role in producing quarters for circulation across the country. A 1978 quarter with a D Mint mark tells us it was struck in Denver, and while millions of such coins exist, only a tiny fraction exhibit the kinds of anomalies that can make them extraordinarily valuable. It's important to understand that rarity alone does not always create value. It's the type of rarity, combined with historical context and collector demand, that truly matters. One of the most talked about and valuable categories of errors for the 1978 quarter involves double die errors. Double dies occur during the creation of the coin dies themselves, not during the striking of individual coins. If the die receives more than one impression and those impressions are misaligned, the resulting coins will show doubled design elements. On a 1978 quarter, this doubling might appear on the date, the word Liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or even on Washington's facial features. True double die errors are highly sought after because every coin struck from that die will show the same characteristics, making them identifiable and verifiable. Strong double dies from the late 1970s are especially intriguing because quality control procedures were more advanced than in earlier decades, making such errors less common. When a bold, easily visible double die is discovered on a 1978 quarter, it immediately attracts attention from collectors and researchers. The clearer and more dramatic the doubling, the more desirable the coin becomes. Another significant category of errors involves die cracks, die breaks, and cuds. Dies are made of hardened steel, but they are not indestructible. Over time, especially under the stress of striking hundreds of thousands of coins, dies can develop cracks. These cracks appear on coins as raised lines, often running through the design. As cracks grow, they can turn into die breaks, and in extreme cases, pieces of the die can break away entirely. When that happens, coins struck afterward will show large raised areas where design elements are missing or distorted. Large, dramatic cuds on a 1978 quarter can significantly increase its value, especially if they affect major parts of the design like Washington's portrait or the lettering. These types of errors are visual, obvious, and fascinating, making them highly appealing to collectors who specialize in mint errors. Off-center strikes are another exciting possibility. These occur when the blank planchet is not properly aligned in the striking chamber. As a result, the design is only partially struck onto the coin, leaving part of the planchet blank, while minor off-center strikes are. My great viewers, our next discussion is all about the Liberty $quarter from 1981 with the Philadelphia Mint origin, a coin that most people have seen, used, and forgotten, yet under extremely rare circumstances has been connected to a mind-blowing potential worth of up to $74,000 million. That incredible difference between a simple face value of 25 cents and a multi-million valuation is not based on fantasy alone, but on the fascinating world of minting errors, production mistakes, mint mark peculiarities, historical context, and rare possibilities that can transform an ordinary coin into something legendary. At first glance, the 1981 P Liberty quarter looks exactly like any other Washington quarter from the late 20th century. It features George Washington's familiar portrait on the front, strong and dignified, with the word Liberty above his head and the motto "In God We Trust" placed neatly to the side. The date 1981 appears below, and on the reverse side, the eagle stands with outstretched wings, clutching arrows and olive branches, symbolizing both strength and peace. The coin is made of copper and nickel, not silver, and it was produced in very large quantities for everyday circulation. Nothing about it immediately signals extreme rarity or massive value. And yet, this is precisely what makes the story so compelling. The year 1981 was a challenging one for the United States Mint. The country was coming out of a turbulent economic period marked by inflation, high interest rates, and shifting consumer behavior. Coins were in constant demand, and the mint was under pressure to produce vast quantities of circulating coinage quickly and efficiently. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark during certain years but did use the P mint mark by 1981, played a crucial role in supplying quarters to the nation. High production speed, heavy use of dies, and the human element involved in minting all combined to create conditions where mistakes could, and sometimes did, occur. Understanding why a 1981 P quarter could be associated with such an extraordinary value requires an appreciation of how coins are made and where things can go wrong. Coin minting is a complex industrial process involving metal preparation, planchet cutting, annealing, upsetting, die creation, and high-pressure striking. At each step, there is potential for something unusual to happen. Most of the time, quality control catches errors before coins leave the mint. But when an error slips through, especially a dramatic or rare one, it can become a prized collectible decades later. One of the most important categories of errors that can affect the value of a 1981 P Liberty quarter is the double die error. Double dies occur during the creation of the coin dies themselves. If the die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, every coin struck from that die will show doubling in certain design elements. On a 1981 P quarter, this doubling might appear on the word Liberty, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or even in the fine details of Washington's hair and facial features. True double die errors are highly sought after because they are not the result of damage or wear but are inherent to the coin as it was made. What makes double die errors from the early 1980s particularly interesting is that minting technology had improved significantly by that time. The hubbing process was more refined, and quality control was generally stronger than in earlier decades. This means that strong, easily visible double dies from 1981 are relatively rare compared to those from earlier periods. When such an error is discovered, it attracts immediate attention from collectors and researchers, especially if the doubling is bold and unmistakable. Another important group of errors involves die cracks, die breaks, and cuds. Dies are made from hardened steel, but they are subjected to enormous pressure as they strike hundreds of thousands of coins. Over time, stress can cause small cracks to form. These cracks appear on coins as raised lines, sometimes thin and subtle, sometimes bold and dramatic. As cracks grow, they can develop into die breaks, and in extreme cases, pieces of the die can break away entirely, creating what collectors call a cud. Cuds are especially fascinating because they dramatically alter the appearance of a coin. A large cud on a 1981 P quarter might appear along the rim, covering part of the lettering, or even intruding into Washington's portrait. The size, location, and uniqueness of the cud all play a role in determining value. Large, visually striking cuds are far rarer than small cracks and are often considered major mint errors. In some cases, a coin with a massive cud may be one of only a few known examples, or even unique, which is where extraordinary valuations come into play. Off-center strikes are another category of errors that can significantly increase the. I'm really glad you've chosen to spend your time with me, because what we're about to talk about is one of those stories that completely transforms the way we look at everyday money. Our next history is all about the Liberty Quarter Dollar from 1999 with the Philadelphia Mint origin, a coin that most people remember simply as part of their daily change, yet under extremely rare and extraordinary circumstances has been associated with an astonishing potential worth of up to $61.20000 million. That unbelievable difference between a face value of just 25 cents and a valuation that reaches into the millions is rooted in a fascinating combination of minting errors, production mistakes, mint mark peculiarities, historical timing, collector psychology, and rare possibilities that can elevate a common coin into legendary status. At first glance, the 1999 Liberty Quarter seems completely ordinary. It features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the front, a design that Americans had known for generations. The word Liberty arches above his head, the motto "In God We Trust" appears nearby, and the date 1999 sits clearly beneath the portrait. On the reverse, depending on the specific issue, we see either the traditional eagle design or, in many cases from 1999, one of the new state quarter designs that marked a major shift in U.S. coinage. The coin is made of a copper core clad with nickel, not silver, and it was produced in enormous numbers. Nothing about it immediately suggests rarity, let alone extraordinary value. And yet, this is exactly what makes the story of the 1999 quarter so compelling. The year 1999 was a landmark moment in American numismatic history. It marked the beginning of the 50-state quarters program, one of the most ambitious and successful coin programs ever launched by the United States Mint. For the first time in decades, everyday circulating coins were redesigned regularly, featuring unique designs honoring each state. This program captured the attention of the public like no coin program before it. Millions of people who had never collected coins suddenly began saving quarters, searching through their change, and paying closer attention to mint marks and dates. With this surge in public interest came an enormous increase in production demands. The Philadelphia Mint was under intense pressure to strike vast quantities of quarters quickly and efficiently to meet nationwide demand. Speed, volume, and consistency became top priorities. When production scales reach such massive levels, even the most advanced quality control systems can be stretched thin. This environment created the perfect conditions for minting errors, some minor, some dramatic, and a few potentially legendary. Understanding why a 1999 Liberty Quarter could be associated with such an extraordinary valuation requires a deeper look at how coins are made and where things can go wrong. Coin production involves multiple complex steps, including the preparation of metal strips, cutting planchets, annealing, upsetting, die creation, and finally, striking under immense pressure. Each step introduces opportunities for anomalies. Most of the time, these issues are caught and corrected. Occasionally, however, an error slips through and enters circulation, where it may go unnoticed for years. One of the most important categories of errors that can dramatically affect the value of a 1999 quarter is the double die error. Double dies occur during the creation of the coin dies themselves, not during the striking of individual coins. If the die receives multiple impressions that are misaligned, the resulting coins will show doubling in specific design elements. On a 1999 quarter, this doubling might appear on the word Liberty, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or even on the fine details of Washington's face and hair. True double die errors are especially prized because they are intrinsic to the coin. They are not caused by damage, wear, or post-mint alteration. Every coin struck from that defective die will display the same characteristics, making them identifiable and verifiable. Strong, clearly visible double dies from 1999 are particularly fascinating because minting technology by that time was highly advanced. Quality control was generally excellent, which means that dramatic double dies are relatively rare. When one is discovered, it immediately draws serious attention from collectors and researchers. Another important group of errors involves die cracks, die breaks, and cuds. Dies are made from hardened steel, but they endure tremendous stress as they strike hundreds of thousands of coins. Over time, this stress can cause cracks to form. These cracks appear on coins as raised lines, sometimes thin and subtle, sometimes bold and dramatic. As cracks grow, they can turn into die breaks, where portions of the die begin to fail. In extreme cases, a section of the die can break away completely. Most people pass coins from hand to hand without ever giving them a second thought, but today we're diving deep into a single coin that proves how powerful curiosity and knowledge can be. This video is all about the Liberty Quarter Dollar from the year 2001, a United States coin with a simple face value of just 25 cents, yet under extremely rare and fascinating circumstances, it has been connected to an astonishing potential worth of up to $56,000 million. That incredible difference between ordinary pocket change and extraordinary wealth is driven by a remarkable mix of minting errors, production mistakes, mint mark variations, historical timing, collector demand, and rare possibilities that turn an everyday object into a numismatic legend. At first glance, the 2001 Liberty Quarter Dollar looks familiar and unremarkable. It carries the iconic portrait of George Washington on the front, a design that has been part of American coinage for generations. The word Liberty arches across the top, the motto "In God We Trust" appears alongside the portrait, and the date 2001 is clearly visible below. The reverse features one of the designs associated with the State Quarters program, which by 2001 was already well underway and had captured the attention of millions of Americans. The coin is composed of a copper core clad with nickel, and millions upon millions were produced. Nothing about it immediately suggests rarity or extreme value, and yet, this is exactly where the story becomes so compelling. The year 2001 sits at a very interesting point in modern U.S. coin history. The State Quarters program, launched in 1999, was in full momentum. By 2001, the novelty had not worn off. In fact, public interest was still incredibly strong. People across the country were actively searching their change, filling albums, saving rolls, and paying closer attention to coins than they had in decades. This surge in attention placed enormous pressure on the United States Mint to produce vast quantities of quarters quickly and efficiently to meet national demand. When mints operate at such high speeds and volumes, even the most advanced technology and strict quality control can be stretched to their limits. Coins are produced through a complex, multi-stage process involving metal strip preparation, blank cutting, annealing, upsetting, die creation, and high-pressure striking. Each of these steps must work perfectly, thousands of times per hour, every single day. When something goes wrong, even slightly, it can result in a minting error. Most errors are caught and corrected, but occasionally, some escape into circulation. These escaped errors are where extraordinary value begins. One of the most important and widely discussed error types associated with the 2001 Liberty Quarter Dollar is the double die error. This type of error occurs during the creation of the coin dies themselves. If the die receives multiple impressions that are misaligned, the design elements on the die become doubled. Every coin struck from that die will carry those doubled features. On a 2001 quarter, doubling may appear on the word Liberty, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or the fine details of Washington's face, hair, or eye. True double die errors are especially significant because they are not the result of damage or wear after the coin leaves the mint. They are part of the coin's original design as struck. Strong, clear doubling that can be seen without magnification is rare in modern coinage, making such examples highly desirable. In a year like 2001, when minting technology was highly advanced, the presence of a dramatic double die suggests an unusual breakdown in quality control, which only adds to the coin's mystique. Another major category of errors that can elevate the value of a 2001 Liberty Quarter Dollar involves die cracks, die breaks, and cuds. Coin dies are made from hardened steel, but they endure tremendous pressure as they strike hundreds of thousands of planchets. Over time, this stress can cause cracks to form in the die. These cracks appear on coins as raised lines, sometimes thin and subtle, sometimes bold and dramatic. As cracks grow, they can develop into die breaks, where larger sections of the die begin to fail. In the most extreme cases, part of the die breaks away completely, resulting in what collectors call a cud. A cud appears as a raised, blob-like area on the coin, usually near the rim, where part of the design is missing or distorted. Large, dramatic cuds are far rarer than small cracks and are considered major mint errors. A 2001 quarter with a massive cud that intrudes into the lettering or Washington's portrait could be one of only a handful known, or even unique, which is where extraordinary valuations become possible. Off-center strikes are another error type that plays a significant role in the story of high-value quarters. These occur when the planchet is not properly aligned in the strike-in. Coins are something we handle without thinking, something we spend, drop in jars, or forget in drawers, yet sometimes a single coin can hold a story so surprising that it challenges everything we believe about value. Now, we are diving deep into the Liberty Quarter Dollar from the year 2004, a United States coin with a simple face value of just 25 cents, yet under rare and extraordinary circumstances, it has been linked to a staggering potential worth of up to $50.30000 million. That unbelievable gap between what the coin says it's worth and what it could actually be worth is driven by errors, mistakes, mint mark irregularities, and remarkable possibilities that turn an ordinary quarter into a legendary collectible. At first glance, the 2004 Liberty Quarter Dollar looks like any other modern American quarter. It carries the familiar portrait of George Washington on the front, a design that has been part of U.S. coinage for generations. The word Liberty sits proudly across the top, the motto "In God We Trust" appears near Washington's portrait, and the date 2004 is clearly visible below. On the reverse, depending on the specific issue, the coin features a design from the State Quarters program, which by 2004 had become one of the most successful and widely collected coin programs in history. Millions upon millions of quarters were produced that year, flowing into circulation across the country. To most people, there is nothing special about them. But in the world of coin collecting, what matters is not just how many were made, but how they were made, and whether something went wrong along the way. The year 2004 occupies a fascinating place in modern U.S. minting history. The State Quarters program was at its peak, with intense public interest and enormous production demands. Collectors, casual hobbyists, and even people who had never paid attention to coins before were suddenly checking their change, filling albums, and searching for specific designs. This massive demand placed extraordinary pressure on the United States Mint. Production lines ran at extremely high speeds, dies were used extensively, and quality control systems were pushed to their limits. When coins are produced in such vast quantities, even the smallest mechanical or human error can result in unusual coins slipping through unnoticed. To understand how a 2004 Liberty Quarter Dollar could become so valuable, it's important to understand the minting process itself. Coins begin as large metal strips made of a copper core layered with nickel. These strips are fed into machines that punch out round blanks called planchets. The planchets are then heated, cleaned, and sent through an upsetting mill that raises a rim around the edge. After that, they are struck between two hardened steel dies under immense pressure, impressing the design onto the metal. This process happens thousands of times per minute. When everything works perfectly, the result is a normal coin. When something goes wrong, an error is born. One of the most significant and valuable error types associated with modern quarters, including those from 2004, is the double die error. This occurs during the creation of the coin dies, not during the striking of individual coins. If the die receives more than one impression that is misaligned, parts of the design become doubled on the die itself. Every coin struck from that die will show the same doubling. On a 2004 quarter, this doubling might appear on the word Liberty, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," or even in the fine details of Washington's face, hair, or eye. True double die errors are highly prized because they are part of the original design and not the result of damage or wear after the coin left the mint. Die cracks and die breaks are another category of errors that can dramatically increase a coin's value. Coin dies are incredibly strong, but they endure tremendous stress as they strike hundreds of thousands of planchets. Over time, this stress can cause small cracks to form in the die. These cracks appear on coins as raised lines, often running through letters or across design elements. As the cracks grow larger, they can develop into die breaks, where sections of the die begin to fail. In extreme cases, part of the die breaks away entirely, resulting in what collectors call a cud. A cud appears as a raised, blob-like area on the coin, usually near the rim, where part of the design is missing or distorted. Large, dramatic cuds on a 2004 Liberty Quarter are exceptionally rare and can place the coin among the most valuable modern-era pieces. Off-center strikes are another fascinating possibility. These occur when the planchet is not properly seated in the striking chamber. As a result, the design is only partially struck onto the coin, leaving a blank area where no design appears. Small off-center strikes are relatively common, but large off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mar